Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal, and it is another late night, but it is a football post game show, Albuquerque Journal Sports Live post game show with Sean Reider, who is in Auburn, Alabama, right now as we speak. Covered tonight's UNM Lobo Auburn football game. I'll start off with this. First of all, the final score: Auburn 45, the UNM Lobos 19. And I certainly have some thoughts. Sean has already done the post game interview. Sean was there in person. We'll have a much better perspective than I on a lot of this stuff. But I'm curious to see how much watching it from afar and watching it there in person, how much of it lines up. So first thoughts, Sean, what was it like there in Auburn tonight?
Very wet. It was really wet. There was a stretch, basically the final 4, maybe 3 minutes of the first half, and Auburn's most press boxes, right? If you're not to like get too deep into this, are usually like at the 50. Auburn's is actually in the corner. So you see the field at a different angle, and most press boxes are kind of have like an overhang. They have slanted windows and an overhang above. Not so for Auburn. So for the final 3 or so minutes of the first half, rain was coming down. I'm sure you guys noticed in the broadcast, absolutely dumping. And I've never been in a press box where it was like this, where you could not see through the rain in terms of water on the windows and all that for a good 3 minutes, really. You just couldn't. Like Gabe Lopez had that fumble recovery towards the end. We did not see that live. You just saw like white and like navy shapes just kind of moving around, and then a guy in the PO was like Gabe Lopez fumble recovery. So always.
It was visible. You could see it on the broadcast pretty well. In fact, I think I have the Gabe Lopez video here. I will say this: while it came towards the end of the first half, on TV it seemed like the rain only really affected the last stretch of that second quarter rather. Was the rain really affecting a lot more than that?
I think it absolutely was. Yeah, I think it was absolutely affecting the second half in particular too. Kind of after that deluge. Actually walking on the turf. It's not turf. It's real grass. Really nice field here. It's really wet. So I definitely think it affected it. To a extremely high degree, to the point where UNM would have been in it longer if it wasn't raining. I don't think so. And I think the environment in terms of the noise and all that, Jordan Hare's a tick over 88,000 tonight in the stands. I think that what Mendenhall said and what you could kind of tell watching, I think that had play on some of the communication, and also kind of led to some penalties in terms of pre-snap stuff.
I am curious in terms of the rain. How much of this did you guys know, and did the team know ahead of time? I know the weather report said it could rain. Was this expected to be quite that much ahead of the game?
At least like my weather report, I knew it was going to be raining for the majority of the evening, and I did not ask UNM how closely, and there's Gabe Lopez, how closely they were viewing the weather report in particular, but I guarantee they were pretty prepared for it.
It did look like the crowd was certainly what you would expect from an SEC home crowd. Again, for those that didn't hear it or just joining us, kind of as we're rolling here, this is when the rain was coming down its hardest. TV shows it there, but as Sean was saying, in case you missed it, from the press box, they basically didn't see this play happen.
We did not see this happen.
yeah, it was raining hard enough where this view here, you can tell it's raining, obviously, on TV, and you could tell it's raining hard, but you could also still see the play. There in the stadium, apparently it was raining so hard that Sean couldn't even see this play from the press box. This was obviously a really good play because it was the one time that Auburn got in the red zone where Auburn did not score. And that's a theme, I think, on both sides that was a big part of this game. What you did when you got in the red zone or inside the 30, because there were two other drives where New Mexico got once to the 30 and once to the 25. I'll get to that in a minute. I do have some stats on that. I know Sean has all the stats too. Obviously, haven't been there, but let me ask you this, Sean. Before we get into a little bit more of this game, let's go to the end of it and talk to Bronco. You interviewed who'd you interview after the game, and sort of what was their post game before we start dissecting the details of the game?
Yeah, so we got we got Bronco Mendenhall, obviously, and then wide receiver Ryan Davis, who had 6 catches for 100 yards. Kind of cool there. He's his 5th year of college football. First time he's ever cracked triple digits. He's at UAB transfer. He came in with former offensive coordinator Brian Vitson and that staff, and just never really stayed all that healthy at UAB. He had a couple injuries last year too. But I mean, right now not to get too off track, I mean, you could say he's kind of the number 2 receiver, at least in terms of production. And then Bryson Taylor, who led the team in tackles. I believe he had 8 total tackles and then 3 PBUs.
Let me interject real quick there. It looked like the 2 leading tacklers were both cornerbacks, which when your secondary is leading you in tackles, sometimes not the best of signs. But I don't think the defense was well. I'll let you continue. And he was one of the 2 leading tackles. I don't recall seeing 2 cornerbacks being 2 leading tacklers on the team before. But safeties, yes, linebackers, of course. 2 cornerbacks, I haven't seen that before.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird, right? Because like in that first half, like it really wasn't like Auburn was totally gashing them in the run game. It really wasn't. If anything, I mean, like I think I made the note in the halftime tweet, like, hey, they look pretty all right against the run game. They've held up pretty okay. They're going up against a really good featured back in Jarquez Hunter. He's one of the oldest and one of the better backs in the SEC. And they didn't totally get gashed. And then that second half happened. They came out. Auburn was clearly intent on running the ball, and they made it happen there. But yeah, I mean, the post-game thing, I think one of the things that you heard about the most, and one of the things that we asked about a lot, was kind of red zone opportunities and stuff like that. UNM was able to get the ball in the red zone, but they were coming up with field goals far too often. And if you're going to go on the road and you're going to beat an SEC team, you got to have touchdowns instead of field goals.
Yeah, and I mean, you obviously have the stats too. You're writing about a bigger picture. I wrote this down just to sort of kind of snapshot just the red zone opportunities, and I did. UNM got in the red zone 5 times, had 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and 1 missed field goal in the red zone. But if you extend that to the 20 or to the 30, inside the 30, they were inside the 30-yard line 7 times. That's 7 of 11 drives tonight. They got within field goal range, and they got 19 points out of it. You're not going to win many games at all, especially not on the road at an SEC environment where you're inside the 37 times and you come away with 19 points. I was going to run down real quick. In the first quarter, early on, you march down, you get to the Auburn 15, you get a field goal. Okay, you're on the board. You take a lead. Not thinking much of it. Second drive of the game, they get a touchdown out of it, right? Rogers gets his touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So you're up. You have 10 points. You're up 10-7 at that point. First quarter, red zone isn't really an issue or a theme at this point. But then you get there again in the second quarter. You get down to the Auburn 4 field goal. All right, you get more points out of it, but you're now in the second quarter and you've been inside Auburn's red zone 3 times, and you got to settle for 2 field goals. You get you get to the 20, so right at the red zone again in the second quarter, and you miss a field goal. So in the first half alone, you have 4 red zone trips, and you have 13 points to show for it. Again, you'll take 13 points, you'll take 3 scores on the road at the SEC at an SEC opponent, but this offense was better than 13 points in that first half. And then it got even worse in terms of just final result of what happened inside the red zone or inside the 30, because in the third quarter, you get to the Auburn 25. Devin throws a bad interception. Again, he doesn't do that a whole lot. He's trying to make a play.
Well, wait. Are you talking about the one that was over Weissong?
Was this interception the one in the third quarter, not the one where he was rolling right and through where they picked it over Weissong? You're right, because that one wasn't in the red zone or inside the 30.
Yeah. I was
wrong interception, but that was a bad interception.
And the other interception, this is where we could probably get a homer label on that one. If you do go back and watch that, UNM, I don't think any other team is going to get that call in this stadium with that crowd against this team. It was kind of a pick on Ryan Davis. If you go back and look at it, it was a little bit of a pick on RD. That certainly doesn't help the homer angle or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's 2 interceptions, it's 2 turnovers.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to win at Jordan Hare, you can't really have that.
So if you're in the third quarter, if you're just looking at the third quarter, you're now up to an interception at the Auburn 25 and a touchdown, Medford touchdown, but then a turnover or downs. This one in the fourth quarter, kind of a little nitpicky. It was when they were obviously down so much that they weren't just going to settle for a field goal.
Yeah.
But that was after the muffed punt that, of course, Luke Weissong, who had another fantastic game in my mind. I know he didn't have the 100 yards receiving, but I thought Luke Weissong did a little bit of everything.
And I'll interject. I mean, he did a little bit of everything, and he kept drives alive. I mean, there were drives where he was getting 3 touches in a row. And again, I think it was I want to say it was like it wasn't 3rd and 20, but similar to that Arizona game. I mean, there was one where I mean,
well, I'm going to pull up this is Luke Weissong to me. This play I'm going to pull up. It is a 21-yard reception.
Yep.
And he just gets drilled. He holds on to it. He goes to the sideline, but like
clearly in pain, like walking off. Like, I mean, he was grabbing his side, and it was a nasty hit.
Absolutely. He's a guy too that I to be fair, we pointed out after the opening game loss, like he had something that he was obviously going to regret in one drop, right? The guy's been nails since, and was nails before that. It was like really that one drop all season. And frankly, I think the guy's been the best player, and that includes, I mean, Devin Dampier's been special, but like Luke Weissong is making him look really good an awful lot too. And he's doing things like this catch here where he just gets drilled and holds on to it. But this to me is like kind of the epitome of Luke Weissong. You can see the first down line, where he catches it, where he gets hit, and where he comes down with it. That to me, moving the chains makes Devin Dampier look good when you can convert on third down, right? But Luke Weissong's doing that an awful lot. To your point, that he was doing an awful lot on third down.
Yeah, and it was never a question going into the season of how much. It was never a question how much of a role Luke Weissong is going to play. It was just a matter of what he was going to do with that role. And through 3 games, I mean, I think you always knew he was a good receiver, and you always knew he had the potential to be something special. But to see him really kind of, I don't even want to say blossom, because you think it's always been there. But in this offense, the way that they've used him and the way that he's taken advantage of it, I mean, it's been a sight to see for sure.
All right, I've shown that enough.
Love watching him get it.
You could just keep watching it, I guess, too, right? I don't know if that's something that he wants to watch again, but
enjoying it.
Look, my big takeaway from tonight's game is this: through 3 games, I still think I think it kind of ends tonight. But through 3 games, you can still be happy that even at 0-3, you can still be happy with the progress. You can still see the progress, clearly see a lot of progress with this team. And there's no reason to really come down too hard on this team. Penalties kind of started rearing their ugly head a little bit in this game. You can start nitpicking at that. But through this point of the season, I think you're about as happy as you can be, with the exception of pulling off at least 1 win. I mean, had you been 1-2 right now, you'd be a lot better on that, that season win-loss total of 2.5. You'd just be feeling a lot better. But I think if anybody told you that 3 games into the season, like throw the records out, whether you're 3-0, 1-2, 2-1, whatever record you want there, just throw that out there. Through 3 games of the season, if you could somehow know that this offense was going to be running this good and this team overall was looking this competitive, especially relative to a Mountain West that frankly isn't looking all that good overall in my mind, I think any Lobo fan would be happy with that right now. Now, 0-3 is 0-3, and I think this is probably the end of where you kind of keep giving moral victory pats on the back. That's not to say I think they're going to beat Fresno State next week. It's not to say I think they're going to go win the Mountain West, but they better start being in games to like actually win it, like they were with Montana State. They weren't with Arizona. They weren't tonight at Auburn. And yet I'm still kind of feeling positive about how they performed. I think you got to start being in games to actually have a chance to win it from now on to sort of get the pat on the back.
Yeah, and look, I'll come in with this with the caveat that, like, I'm not from New Mexico. I have not followed New Mexico football intently since I got this job. But I do think, like, if you've been doing that, like, there's something that is certainly, again, nobody likes to lose. Nobody wants an 0-3 start. And I think I agree with you for the most part. I mean, like, this is kind of the point where there aren't going to be a whole lot of pats on the back in terms of, good performances and moral victories and all that. But with all that being said, I have not watched Mexico football for years, but yeah, I had people kind of tweeting tonight. It's like bye games used to be over in like 20 minutes, and then I think somebody responded to one. I think it was Lobo Lane. They said bye games used to be over in 20 minutes, and somebody responded to that like they used to be over in 10 minutes. The fact that they were hanging around against Arizona, against Auburn, and doing some impressive stuff offensively, if not always defensively, for sure. Yeah, I think that's been really heartening for people. And I think, we asked Ryan Davis tonight. You heard from players and coaches in the preseason, during fall camp and all that, and a little bit during the spring too, that they felt this offense had, the possibility to be special. And that's something that we kind of heard last year. And I thought that last year's offense was a pretty good offense, a lot of different respects. Not quite as varied and multifaceted, and frankly, as fun to watch as this year's offense and all that. But I asked Ryan Davis tonight. It's like, do you guys feel like you are in that spot where like it's it has almost surprised you in some ways? And he's like, I mean, not really, but at the same time, he's like, we'll make big plays in a game, but like in practice, like we're making big plays, and we're like, I'm like turning to Devin. I'm like, that play should be on SportsCenter. The fact that that's translating onto the field right now against two P4 opponents that like players don't say this and all that, and coaches don't say it either. At least in this regime, that just frankly have more talent on both sides of the ball than them. Yeah, I think that is certainly impressive. Defensively, though, I mean, things have to, things do have to kind of take a turn and all that. We can get to that in a bit.
Well, I do have on the bottom line there on the little ticker there, the total yards. I'll go ahead and throw it out there now. Auburn, 503 total yards. Not the worst number, frankly. 503 at Auburn. If you keep it right at 500, I think that's okay, as crazy as that sounds. That may sound to some people, but 500, okay. You just don't want the 268 rushing. I think they quietly kind of dominated up front again. And,
I wouldn't say dominated up front.
268 rushing yards sure isn't a good number, especially when you got teams in the Mountain West that can, some of them can run the ball pretty well.
Wait, are you saying Auburn dominated up front?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said New Mexico. I was
like, no. Auburn ended with 268. Yeah. No, Auburn ended with 268 rushing, and I think they kind of quietly dominated. While I don't think it was like overt, I do think that they controlled it up front for the most part. I think Devin got a lot of protection from the offensive line. But I think
protection, but there was one play in the first half where I think he scrambled out of it somehow. Like the rusher got like, I think it was Eugene Asante, the linebacker. He got like his leg and he somehow got out of it. And I remember like having the tweet written, like, I don't know how he got flat in there. I think this is a level of pass protection similar to the Arizona game in a lot of ways, where it really was, they protected him. They kept him upright. And what's the sack number right now? I mean, didn't give up any sacks, but at the same time, Devin was on the run quite a good deal and forced to, go sideline to sideline trying to find anybody.
Well, so, if you want like Devin, so I'm still a believer that they could probably move the pocket a little more and have him run a little more.
Yeah.
But he did it pretty well against Arizona, obviously. I will say that he's so important. I get why they don't do it. This play here, though, I mean, this is just crazy. And this is what Devin Dampier kind of has done all season. Just sort of continue to make plays, and he gets out of leg tackles a lot.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, this is just the ultimate something from nothing right here. Like, I think the way you put it was he ran 72 yards for a gain of 15.
Yeah. What did he end up with rushing wise tonight? It wasn't
I want to say not more than 20. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have it right there. Actually, it's right on the bottom right there, 17 rushing yards.
Yeah.
So, he had 17 rushing yards, and he got 15 of them on this play here. It's because some of the other ones were obviously, might have got tackled for loss and stuff like that. But I do think rolling him out a little more is what I would do. That doesn't mean I think they're screwing up what they're calling on offense. I think the offense has been the bright spot. So don't, take that for what it's worth. Is just some guy sitting in front of a computer screen here saying the one thing I think I'd like to see out of this offense is them roll Devin out a little bit more.
Yeah, and look, credit to it's credit to Auburn's defense too. I think they did for the most part a pretty all right job containing Devin. Arizona, I mean, it was clear that they weren't really prepared for him to come around the edge, and they certainly got burned for it. So yeah, I give some credit to Auburn's defense there and what they were doing.
I think as you kind of look forward to, I guess let's look forward real quick to the scoreboard right now, which is this Mountain West scoreboard has UNM's next two opponents are playing right now in Fresno, and at halftime, actually, they just started the third quarter, but at halftime, sorry about that, we have Fresno State up on New Mexico State, 31-0.
Who has been? I've been getting a couple tweet notifications. Obviously, I haven't been watching. Did a WAD start? I saw Hogan got in for a bit? Do we know anything on that, or should we just save it for another show?
Yeah, I don't know who started. I couldn't tell you. Hopefully somebody. I haven't seen any comments yet. I know there's 400 people watching us, so hopefully we can get a couple comments in. Send us your questions, send us your comments. Where do you guys think right now? There we go. This is
the Albuquerque Journal itself.
Wow. Albuquerque Journal's on top of it. Good for that Albuquerque Journal.
That's great. I'm a huge fan of this.
Yes, good for you, Albuquerque Journal. On X,
wow,
that's at ABQ Journal. For those scoring at home, I imagine that is Lucas Pierman, our trusty sports editor, back in the office, watching along. So thank you, Lucas. But it is now 37-0. By the way, Fresno State just scored early in the third quarter.
So Deuce Deuce has been getting the majority of the reps then. So
yeah. What Lobo fans should make of this score right now in Fresno is that next week's going to be a really tough game, and the week after that's going to be a really tough game because it's a rivalry. So don't look too much into this. They're now 38-0. PAT was good. So 38-0. Fresno State's up early in the third quarter on New Mexico State, and those are the next two opponents for the Lobos. And I got a text from our trusty sports editor now, who was saying, yes, that was him that let us know that AWOD started, and that he maybe forgot that he was on the Journal's account and not his own account. So not that I need to share every text with you, of course. But anyway, the Lobos' next two opponents are Fresno State and New Mexico State. And like I said earlier, I think the pats on the back for moral victories are kind of over. I don't know that I think they need to beat Fresno State. In fact, I'm saying I don't think they need to beat Fresno State to still be seeing progress and being happy with them, but they need to start being competitive in games. You can't get inside the 37 times out of 11 drives and only get 19 points. You just can't. And now you start holding them maybe a little more accountable than oh, good try. Let's hope that doesn't happen all year. Let's learn from it kind of stuff. Now you got to start delivering. And I think that's sort of where I'm at overall about tonight's game.
Yeah, and I know that Montana State was a 2-touchdown favorite, and I know that they're a really, really good football team. Like, I had an Auburn guy email me like a Q&A before this, and one of the questions was just Montana State, really? And it's like, well, they're a really good football team, man. Like, they're contending for an FCS national title. I do totally understand I do totally get any fan that was upset over that loss. Honestly, I do. I mean, you had opportunities to win that thing really late. You had opportunities to put it away, and it just didn't happen. Whether it was that first game out for this team and this roster and this coaching staff, at New Mexico, you still have to figure out a way to make those plays happen. And I guarantee players and coaches say the exact same thing. Auburn and Arizona, though, I don't think anybody was expecting them to be even remotely competitive with either team. And I think the spreads and all that really reflected that as well. So I don't know. Yeah, it's in general, I'm mostly with you. I mean, this is kind of I don't want to say honeymoon, but this is kind of where the honeymoon period could come to an end.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the case. I think the honeymoon sort of ends now. I think look, not to sidetrack this too much, but this was a big week in college sports and a big week for Mountain West teams, and a lot of things happened around this league, right? And sort
what
of
happened, Geoff? What happened around the league
with the Pac-12 kind of awakening from the dead and stealing poaching 4 Mountain West teams, UNM not one of them. And I see some Lobo fans making comments like, oh, just wait, Broncos gonna save the day and they're going to be good. They're going to regret this. Well, UNM should have had that done by now, right? Like you're not in position to be in position right now, so you can't wait forever on it. And there was optimism in the first year under Bob Davie. There was optimism in the first year under Danny. Like now you got to start delivering it. A lot of optimism for Lobo football in the past has come in losses. That only gets you so far. I'm okay with it being there so far, though, through 3 games. But yeah, I'm a believer now that I think the phrase you used is one that did cross my mind, and I think it's the best one, and that's the honeymoon's sort of over now. And to his credit, though, Broncos never like shied away from, yeah, you should expect us to be competitive. Like expect big things of us. I expect big things of my players, because if you don't, then they're not going to reach those things, right? You do have to expect a lot. And I think at this point, fans should reasonably expect a competitive game against Fresno State and New Mexico State. And if they go 0-2 in those 2 games, fans have every right to be pretty darn disappointed about it too.
Yeah, so for everybody at home, all the fans and all that, just about your favorite college football team, Geoff Grammer is letting you know, however much you enjoy this 0-3 start, the clock is ticking on that.
It's on.
You have to start getting angry very soon, no matter what your expectations for the first season were.
Throwing things. I don't care.
They've been completely surpassed by this 0-3 start.
I do not care how you think you can fan. I'm going to tell you how to fan. And the way you need to fan is be okay so far, but be really mad if they lose ever again. Look, around the league though, and I kind of referenced this earlier.
Yeah, pull that back up. I want to dive into a couple of these.
Yeah, the biggest win of the week came last night. UNLV. I'll scroll down real quick. The Friday night win, UNLV at Kansas.
Yep.
I watched that entire game, and I'll tell you what, UNLV. For a team that doesn't, it's kind of the anti-UNM right now. UNLV doesn't really have a lot going for it on offense right now, and that's with a huge playmaker at receiver, right? A great one, you would think, and a gritty kind of quarterback. But frankly, I don't like their offense a whole lot just yet, but it looks like one that'll get better. Their defense is fantastic, and they're 3-0, and 2 of their wins have been against Big 12 teams. But other than that UNLV win, I mean, I don't know. Do you see one on here that stands out like a good showing by the Mountain West this weekend?
Yeah, I mean the Colorado State game is disappointing. Was Horton Horton was a go tonight, right?
Yeah,
Horton was a go. I think that's pretty disappointing, and I'm very curious to actually get off this and start looking on Twitter and seeing Colorado State fan reactions. Air Force getting flattened by a really not all that good Baylor team. I know it's a P4 team, but Baylor certainly hasn't really impressed. Yeah, I mean, San Jose State held. Utah State had a lead. God, it was like 14-3 on Utah State. I was able to watch some of that as well.
Yeah, I'd say Utah State scores a little deceiving because they might have been one of the few that overall I might actually say it kind of impressed me. They're a unique team because they went through so much late in the offseason, so much transition late, that I don't know that Utah State game was actually that bad a showing by Utah State.
And they weren't. They weren't working with the starting quarterback today. It was Bryson Barnes. Petrus is out. Wyoming. I know this one was brutal for Wyoming fans. I know. BYU Wyoming. That is a classic rivalry right there. This is a real. I mean, where do you go from here if you're Wyoming? Because it just ain't working offensively in the slightest. And for the level of defensive talent that they do have, that feels like I don't want to say waste, but I mean it ain't good. It's not good. And then I didn't see a lick out of Nevada, Minnesota today.
No, but a shutout's a shutout, man. That's it's tough to see. You get shut out like that, and like obviously too early. It's only the third quarter, and it's a 1-score game with San Diego State and Cal. So we'll see what happens there. But the scoreboard doesn't look that great for the Mountain West right now, and I think UNLV has been looking really good. So my point by kind of commenting again on that is I really think that the Lobos have some wins on the table for them that maybe I wouldn't have given them as much a chance at entering the season. Vegas surely didn't give them a chance at a lot of those wins. The over-under for win total for the Lobos, for those that don't know, opened at 1.5 and then jumped up to 2.5. So basically you're betting on, do the Lobos win 2 games or fewer or 3 or more? Well, they are 0-3, but at least 2 touchdown underdogs in all 3 of those games so far. I see some wins down the road, and I think that they will cover that 2.5, even though they've started off 0-3 so far.
Yeah, and like some of it too. It's like like I personally was not, and I don't know how much we need to read in that result today. Like I personally was not that high on Air Force this year. I don't think Air Force. I didn't think Air Force was going to be that good heading into the season. I think I totally understood people giving Troy Calhoun the benefit of the doubt because Troy Calhoun, that guy, has been able to win without perfect circumstances that's for sure. I thought they would be competitive with Wyoming if the offense, does not find some sort of groove in Laramie. Then yeah, absolutely New Mexico will be competitive with Wyoming. Because absolutely there. San Diego State's been kind of interesting as well. That's an ongoing game right now, but they've been interesting in terms of that. UNM has a road game there, so yeah, I totally understood the case for UNM to not be favored in any games on the schedule, during the preseason and all that, and I totally understood the win total. But it was clear it was always going to change, and that is one heck of a catch by Caleb Medford. I
was just going to interrupt real quick. Don't read too much in this. I'm just going to throw some YouTube, some social media clips of some Lobo highlights as we're going. I didn't mean to hijack what you were talking about right there, but
yeah, I will build on this though. This clip in particular. Medford again. He only had 2 receptions for I think. Oh man, so that was what?
This one on the touchdown.
Yeah,
41 and 6, so 47.
Yeah, there we go. Where did 56 come from? Jesus Christ. Yeah, so like, Trujillo, this is kind of a painful night for Nick Trujillo. He did draw a DPI on one of those first drives, but he had a would-be touchdown, didn't turn around, quite get it. One where Devin, the throw wasn't quite on the money, but Trujillo had an opportunity to really get that one as well. I think he ended up with 1 reception for 12 yards. This has been kind of a tough stretch for him because it's kind of clearly there, those connections with him kind of at that X spot. They're just not coming together at this point. But in general, the difference between winning.
Sorry.
Yeah, Mendenhall talked earlier this week about kind of the importance of getting more offensive playmakers involved. And this was such a weird deal here too, because it was going to Bruckler. Was it supposed to go to RD?
This end zone view that they didn't during the game. They went to an end zone view, and you could just tell it was a total scramble drill.
Yeah,
and they both obviously just ran to the same spot. So I don't know who he was throwing it to, but yeah, it could have gone to either way. Obviously, a good play for the Lobos was the result. I'll say this too. I think the Lobos. This isn't to blame the refs at all, but I do think the Lobos had a couple 50-50 calls in the first half that could have gone their way and didn't. I think that they had a chance to stop that opening drive of Auburn's when they had they went for it on 4th down and fumbled the snap. And he picked it up and got the first down anyway. I believe that was their primary running back that kind of got into the Wildcat there. You would ask why they split out Hank Brown so often. They did it, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and I think Auburn media has a different relationship with Hugh Freeze than we do with Bronco Mendenhall. Not in a necessarily positive or negative sense. It's just kind of about how both guys carry themselves, and kind of run their shows and the like. And every time that Hank Brown was split out, even after that Wildcat deal, it got an audible groan in the press box from Auburn media. Like, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to make this happen? And I think that's a really fair question to ask. If you have that fumble and one of them, the one on the other end zone, you guys can't see what I'm pointing at right now. I don't know why I'm doing it. As I look out on the field, that was one. I don't remember who came with the play, but like that Wildcat deal. They just got flattened in the backfield for a loss. It's just kind of a weird, I don't know, weird play call just in multiple spots. But, hey, they got away with it.
Well, I made the comment that they had some plays kind of go, or 50-50s kind of go against them that they could have gone their way. Well, they got away with the pass interference on this touchdown here. I don't know if you saw it up in the press box or saw the replay, but Caleb definitely pushes off here.
100%. Yeah. And I mean,
It's also a great catch. So
let's play that again. And shout out Caleb for for talking it up too.
yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that's a very clear push off. And that was the far end zone. I didn't see that perfectly, but I was able to catch that on the replay. Like, ooh, man, that is. Oh man.
We're doing big things here. We got, we're going up against Canelo and UFC, and yet here we are
We're
doing
going
our
up
thing.
against Canelo? That's crazy. Man.
I will point out, and for those that might have been focused just on this Caleb Medford touchdown in the Lobo game tonight, that there was some big news around Albuquerque sports tonight with Albuquerque's John Jones, getting his UFC 309 fight announced, his heavyweight championship fight against Stipe Miocic. That will be Saturday, November 16th in Madison Square Garden. The day before, the Sunday, November 17th, Patino versus Patino, UNM Lobo versus St. John's game in Madison Square Garden.
Oh,
So
Albuquerque takeover in the Big Apple.
Albuquerque takeover of Madison Square Garden, and I've already looked at flights and booked the flights, and it's not that expensive at all. So anyway, I will be lucky enough to cover both of those and get to see the Garden for the first time. And I'm sure they're all excited. I'm sure Madison Square Garden is excited to have Geoff Grammer coming to town. Now, another fan, this guy's name is Lucas Pierman, is letting us know giving us some Aggie football updates now. So thank you for that. Lucas Pierman, I think is how you say that. Longtime fan of ours, I know. So what do you think? What's next for the Lobos? Do they let me ask you this. I'm giving them moral victory kind of vibes and feeling like it's no big deal that they lost this game, even though the final score ended up looking more lopsided than I think it really was. But it is what it is. The final score is the final score. What was their vibe, around the team and around the people you do see? I know you don't see everybody. You're not in the locker room when you do these interviews, but you see some assistant coaches and staffers. What was the vibe like after tonight's loss?
Well, I mean, in terms of like walking through the tunnel and seeing like assistant coaches and equipment people, kind of getting set up and getting ready to go. I mean, it's just normal stuff. I mean, you've seen it before. I mean, it's people hustling, like get out, make a flight, do all that. In terms of the face-to-face stuff with guys, I mean, it's always interesting because you've done this before, where it's, it is a loss, and sometimes it's a 45-19 loss or something like that margin tonight. And the guys that get brought to the interviews are in terms of players, are the guys that had the best nights and they had the best performances. And you have to kind of start every question with, I know it's not about of individual stuff, but like, how about the night you had and stuff like that. And, for Ryan Davis, he's like, yeah, I mean, it's great to finally crack triple digits and all that, but felt like I definitely could have done more. Bryson Taylor, he led the team in tackles. He had 3 big PBUs. He basically the exact same vibe there. And I think, I think that's not a particularly telling thing in terms of the team's vibe and all that. And I think this is a team that, in the way that it's been coached and the way that it's been recruited and kind of put together and all that, I think this is a team that's not going to have a huge vibe change between, a kind of blowout loss at Auburn and, potential wins and all that. I think it's pretty clear that Mendenhall wants the group to be pretty even keeled regardless. And, just kind of aware that, hey, like no matter what, the result isn't the final result. It doesn't carry over to next week and all that. So
there is a comment on X that I was trying to share here. Somebody didn't put it in the right spot, so I can't drag it on here. You have to reply to the video link. If you reply to the links where I said, "Hey, come join us,"
we gotta talk about this. Yeah.
Sure. But let me put on here. I will put it in this banner here, and I'm going to add this banner. This is a comment from Josh Shell, Schelle, Josh Shell, on X is saying, good talking point are the 16 penalties for 112 yards, and I agree. This is a team, as I said after the first game, I again sort of patted them on the back after Montana State when I think they had 4 penalties after a year after leading the nation in penalties against them and penalty yardage. And I do think the penalties got out of hand again tonight. and there were some bad ones. I don't think we've seen. Well, they were out of hand tonight. I'm not going to put any more context or try and couch it in any other way than I do think the penalties hurt them tonight. What do you think about the penalties?
Yeah, 16 penalties I think is the most in school history. In terms of this is not the most yardage for sure. In terms of school, excuse me, this is not the most yardage in terms of setting like a program record and all that. 16 penalties, 16 called on UNM. That is the most in a single game. And like you kind of mentioned, I kind of when you were patting them on the back to a certain degree, as a term you use for like, hey, not a lot of penalties against Montana State. I do think I said at the time, like, well, it's one game. I mean, like
small sample size.
Small sample size. I don't know if we can totally go out and and really pat them on the back for just not making mistakes and all that. And Mendenhall, we asked him about that, and he said, it's not like you noticed them a ton in the first half. They were there in the first half, but you didn't really totally notice them. Second half, he said, you noticed them really, really hard as opportunities kind of started to dry up. And I mean, to a point, I mean, there were stretches in this game where penalties kind of made it unwatchable. I don't know how it felt like at home in terms of commercial breaks and all that, but there was a lot of stoppages of play with multiple yellow flags in the ground. And Auburn, I mean, I don't know their penalty numbers off the top of my head, but they got a good deal of penalties on their end as well. So yeah, Mendenhall, I mean, put it on himself in terms of, I have to prepare them. I can't, allow those slippages to happen. But and the penalties came in every form, basically. I mean, there's hands to the face, there was a face mask, there was pre-snap stuff. It was just all over.
Broncos
too. A lot of, I mean, there was that one on that punt. You can't have an illegal formation on a punt. You just can't have that.
I was going to say, I think too that Broncos seems to be the type of coach that is going to say things like, that's on me. But I don't know if tonight's were. Like I think tonight's were some basically player led mistakes. I'm just pulling up video here. I wanted to ask you about one other thing, but kind of before we wrap this up tonight, 88,000. Huge crowd at the Arizona game too. They've now performed pretty well in those stages, but even though this is only their third game and week 3 of the college football season, they're probably going to be pretty excited to get back home. How do you think they handled the environment, and do you want to kind of update people on how they got to Auburn in the first place, because they did have some travel woes?
Yeah, so they did due to weather. So they were supposed to fly into Montgomery. If you're playing at Auburn, pretty much every single team stays in Montgomery and just buses over to Auburn. I don't know the mileage off the top of my head between Auburn and Montgomery, but it's relatively close. Because Auburn and Opelika, the neighboring town where it's usually kind of bunched together, they're not huge towns. But they were supposed to fly to Montgomery, and weather kind of score update. That is yikes.
Again, those are the Lobos' next two opponents.
Fresno is a good team.
Fresno is good, but those are the Lobos' next two opponents. Fresno State in Albuquerque next week, New Mexico State in Las Cruces the week after. There you go. So
yeah, that's really disappointing for New Mexico State defense after the way they played last week. Anyways,
New Mexico will rematch, by the way.
Weather prevented them from landing in Montgomery. You're right. New Mexico rematch. We can't finish a single thought on this now. And they had to land in Mobile, Alabama. If you're not familiar with the geography of Mobile, that's like where South Alabama is. I mean, it is South Alabama. I mean,
if I had to guess, I'd say it's 55 miles apart.
It is down there. That's no. And they had to bus. That's a 3-hour bus ride from Mobile to Montgomery. Basically about 3 hours by car. I don't know how long it took by bus. And so they got into Montgomery way later than expected. So that's just kind of a big bump in the road to kind of deal with there. Geoff, what was the other part of your question? Oh, I got so screwed up talking about these tangents and all
just
that.
How happy they're going to be home. I mean, it's weird that 3 games in and just week 3 technically of the college football season, they started in week 0 again. But like it seems like, man, they've been on a road trip the whole season. It seems like I don't know. It seems like because they've performed so well in these losses, to power conference schools, it seems like you want to come home and show that off a little bit, and they haven't been able to. It just seems like they're road weary almost, this early in the season.
Yeah, it's been a lot. And I mean, it's, and luckily, for them, you kind of had that bye week that kind of broke it up a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, these are long, to Auburn, that's a pretty long trip. It's a long day of travel, especially with the woes. Arizona, Tucson, that's not that bad, but it's still, a big road environment. So, I imagine they are excited to get back home. And I think you'll kind of see that shine through with, talk of the homecoming festivities this week.
Not that he talks about it even in his Monday pressers, but and I don't mean to put you on the spot here. I don't know of any injuries, but any injury news that came out of this game that you know about that's worth a mention here right now?
Yeah, he was asked the question, "What do you know about injuries?" And he said, "Yeah, nothing right now." And that's not shocking in particular. Um, I got to see all the snap counts and all that to really kind of dig into some of the defensive usage and all that. Trace Bruckler left early and was out for a little bit. Isaiah Silman kind of filled in for him for, I want to say maybe 2 drives. But then Bruckler came back in. Weissong obviously left after that shot that you showed 15 different times. And then he came back in and then produced and all that. So nothing that I really learned or saw big injury wise. I thought it was a good sign pregame that Mackenzie Agnello was warming up playing center and ended up playing the entire game at center, with the exception of maybe a couple snaps where Malik Lane came in. He missed practice on Tuesday. Lejuan Owens, the Tulane transfer, he had to step in at left tackle due to an injury to Tevin Shaw. And the whole reason that they have these linemen in these places because Juwan Singletary, the center, got injured before the Montana State game. So I hope that was a relatively coherent explanation.
It was, and come Monday, he won't answer it, but I do think it's worth asking. How are Luke Weissong's ribs?
Yeah, probably after that. You're really showing him again?
Yeah, I am. Probably keep it up here 4 or 5 times. I'm telling you, man. Anyway, whatever. All right, look, let's wrap this up. What are you closing thoughts on tonight's game? And sort of moving ahead. It's just 48 hours from now. We'll have already heard from Bronco on his, what he saw in game film and what his Monday press conference is going to be like. But what's the spin forward here, and what's the final thoughts on tonight's game?
I think for all the missed opportunities that you mentioned, kind of being inside the 30 and, coming away with 19 points. How many times were they in 30? 6 times?
7. No, 7.
Yes.
5 in the red zone and 5 in the red zone and 7 in the inside the 30.
I like that you didn't move the goalposts. You kind of moved the red zone with the 30s.
I did.
Yeah. For all that, at the same time, I think we've seen 3 games that this offense is real in a lot of ways. How high of a ceiling it has, I think in the end is going to come down to how much you can get, start connecting with guys like Nick Trujillo and start, reliably getting the ball to Caleb Medford and certain things, because that's going to play a big role in terms of matchups and all that.
I'll say this: it seems like on the one hand, I'm thinking like, man, they're going to the Luke Weissong a little too often, but he actually is starting to spread it around, isn't he? Like maybe he's spreading it around more than I'm giving him credit for, because I was thinking at times tonight, like, you can't go to Luke Weissong every single time. People are going to obviously key on it, but he's also just going to wear down. He's not a big guy. But that said, Davis had 100 yards. Caleb got in the end zone finally. There's some other guys. Trujillo's had some catches. Like there's some other guys that have shown up too. So maybe maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe they aren't going to Weissong too often.
But maybe, yeah, the guys that are showing up, and again, like I mentioned earlier, like, Trujillo probably should have had probably like 2 or 3 more catches and probably should have had a touchdown. The connection just has to kind of iron itself out there with Dampier. And Trujillo is the guy we talked to a little bit earlier this week about that. At the end of the day, though, I do think, this is such a surface level take, but I think we've seen that this offense, it really can play. It's got good personnel. It's just a matter of how much they can get a balance with the personnel. Sean Miller is a guy that I think is a pretty good wide receiver, and he has not gotten the ball a ton.
Right.
And it's not a matter of, coaches are going into the game saying, Devin, you have to pass it to this guy this many times, and you have to connect with this guy this many times. It's just not how it works. And nor that's not how it should work in any capacity. I think that was one thing with it was kind of funny to see this week of Auburn fans talking about the Cal game. It's like, well, why didn't the ball go to Cam Coleman? And why didn't the ball go to Keandre Lambert-Smith? And all that. And it's just not how football works. And it's not how football is played in that offense. I think you do want to I think it would be good for UNM against Fresno State and New Mexico State. I know New Mexico State's not having a great night defensively. I think they're still a pretty solid defense off of what I saw, what they did against Liberty and all that, and what I saw them do against SEMO as well. I think you do want, and I think Fresno's a pretty solid defense as well. I think you do want to see better rushing performances, though. Tonight, as we mentioned, was not a heavy Dampier rushing night. And if we're being honest, against Arizona, Dampier's rushing night, that kind of saved their rushing totals and all that. It made the picture look a little prettier in terms of team totals and all that. I think tonight we did see kind of good spurts from Eli Sanders and Javen Jacobs and the like. But to have that, come in reliably and be something that they can really lean on when they need to move the ball, yeah, I think that's what you want to see from this offense going forward.
I was going to say Eli did end up with 7 carries, 72 yards, which is worth a mention, obviously.
Worth a mention. What was their yards per carry? Do you have that in front of you?
Well, his was 10.3. I do not have it in front of me. Hold on. 6 straight out, right at 6 yards per carry, which is good.
6 is good. And I know they were in a position, you're playing from behind. You're not always in a position to just kind of lean on the run game and all that. But and it's a tough matchup with this defensive line and this defense you're going up against. But at the same time, I think you want to see them maybe be a little more assertive in the run game and start to be in a position. You have to be in position to do this, and they weren't tonight. But going forward, when they are in a spot where they have the lead, and you want to see them close out with the run game and all that. Defensively, I asked Bryson Taylor, I said, look, the final score, obviously not the prettiest thing in the world. Second half wasn't the prettiest thing in the world defensively either. But did you feel that there was some progress kind of made? And he said, yeah, he felt that there was some progress made. I think it's encouraging. The final number is not encouraging. But I do think what the defense did in the first half was relatively encouraging in the way that they were able to limit Jarquez Hunter. Hank Brown started, I don't remember what he started, but it was like maybe 7 for 9. But he finished the first half 1 for 6, and some of that had to deal with the rain, and some of it had to deal with him missing throws, and some of it just had to deal with how UNM was playing him.
And then he settled down in that second half. He hit his first however many, he did pretty well.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's I think it's pretty clearly, right now at the very least, it could change as as the season goes on. Offense is the strength of the team. Defense, just a lot that needs to be worked out there. I think there's some good players on this defense, but just kind of getting them in position and getting more consistency out of them. That's really going to be the key for UNM going forward.
All right, Lobo fans, you got Fresno State coming up next week. You actually get to wave your New Mexico flag in University Stadium in the state of New Mexico. Rules are rules, as Valerie says here. She was apparently at the game today, so I don't know if you saw the New Mexico flag anywhere, but it was there. Did you happen to see it?
I didn't see this flag in the stands, but Auburn actually plays God Bless America before the national anthem, which feels like a very Auburn thing to do. And they had the New Mexico flag with a bunch of other state flags on the field. So it was kind of awkward. Obviously, the national anthem, everybody stands, and you do that. Everybody in the press box started standing for God Bless America.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I guess I'll stand too. So felt a little awkward about pulling the phone out and grabbing a New Mexico State flag photo on the field. But I've never stood for God Bless America, so I don't know.
You do love America, don't you? I mean, come on.
I do love America. I've just never I've never stood for God Bless America in the past.
Look, I was chanting.
I can be patriotic, truly.
The Lobos were chanting USA last night when South Alabama buses got them to town. So
you're proud of that one. You're proud of that one. I don't think who calls it USA. I think everybody just calls it South.
no, it's USA.
When
I'm you want to chant USA, you call it USA.
I'm not into that. The staff that UNM had last year on offense, it's a lot of guys with South Alabama connections, and every time you talk to them about South Alabama, they would just say it's South. And I think,
USA. You're also younger than Rocky, though. So if you'd grown up and you saw Rocky IV in its heyday and chants of USA in the crowd, and back in the day when the Olympics were bigger than they are now for kids your age, you chant a good USA chant, and there's nothing better than a good USA, even if it is for South Alabama.
I remember Tangent, my senior year of high school football. We played a semifinal game, neutral field against Grand Rapids West Catholic, 5-time state champion, very good program.
Of course, you don't have to tell me.
And we would watch a pregame movie before every game, and our head football coach at the time, he chose Rocky IV. And we didn't watch like the full movie. We had like 45 minutes basically.
You just watched the workout montage in the snow, and then the fight in Russia.
No, so Apollo dies, and then our coach walked in, and then he just picked up the remote and just fast forwarded to the montages in Russia and all that.
Yeah,
we hit the bus, and then we lost. So, yeah.
All right. Well, I would have liked a better or a happy ending there, but whatever. I will say along those lines, colleague James Yotis gets to hear the Alamogordo fight song next time I see him, because the Tigers won in double overtime last night, beat Piedra Vista for Alamogordo's homecoming. So Alamogordo High School fight song coming up pretty soon. For whoever is still watching us, thank you.
This live is off the rails. This is one hell of a live right here.
We're signing off now. How was the spread? Did they have any grapes in the spread at the Auburn press box?
Yeah, so Auburn, you just get like a Chick-fil-A box. So you get a chicken sandwich and chicken nuggets or chicken bits or whatever they are for
chicken bits. Did you say chicken bits or like nuggets?
They're not like nuggets, but they're like, they're like it's like popcorn chicken basically. I don't know why I said bits. But popcorn chicken basically.
Guy who's never had a grape called Chick-fil-A chicken bits?
I don't eat a lot of Chick-fil-A. I'll be straight with you. Chick-fil-A breakfast though, pretty good, but just don't eat a lot of it. And yeah, you got a bag of chips with that, and you worked it, and that was it. Good press box. People don't like the corner angle. Actually, I'm fine with the corner angle, especially in terms of watching defense. I think that's nice, but yeah.
Chicken bits, really?
Chicken. I came up with a word. I don't know, man.
Well, happy travels back tomorrow. How many stops do you have? Like seven stops?
You're not going to believe this. Every single game I've traveled to, I've had one layover in some capacity. I have a direct from Atlanta to Albuquerque.
From Atlanta, though. How are you getting to Atlanta?
Yeah, so I got to drive back after this.
But how far of a drive is that?
It's an hour 30, but it's not bad.
That's not bad.
Yeah. It's simple.
Sounds good, Sean. I will see you Monday. There's a press conference coming, and we'll talk again then and kind of start spinning things forward to the Fresno State game.
I can't believe we took this an hour. That is remarkable. Oh, hey, one more thing to bring up. I'm looking at the scoreboard right now. If you ever want a reason to subscribe to the Albuquerque Journal, the final score of tonight's game was 45-19.
I'm sorry. I have it written down here. This is on me, people. I was supposed to bring this up.
Would you like to let the listeners know my final score prediction in a 3 keys and a prediction article that was published in today's paper? Geoff, would you like to let them know what my prediction was?
Final score was 45-19, and Sean's prediction. It was I have it right here. Hold on. Was it 46-20?
It was 44-20.
44-20. Okay.
44-20. Auburn win. Subscribe to the Journal. We know ball. We know ball.
So you had it by 24 points, and it ended up being 26 points, but you're only off by 1 point on both ways. I will, for those Vegas people that aren't watching us at this point anymore, but this line did open up at 28.5, and it closed at kickoff at 24.5, and
I thought it opened at 24 and it got bet up to 28. That's what I saw through Circa. That it opened at 24 and it got bet up to 28.
They got it. Maybe it opened at circuit 24, but it, like on Vegas Insider, I'm looking at right now still, opening line says 28. I think it got up to 28.5 in some places, but at kickoff it was 24.5, and I think it went down towards the Lobos because of the quarterback change, because they're starting a first-time starter. Even though a lot of Auburn fans were happy about it, I think it was still a first-time starter. And at kickoff, at some places, like I'm looking at MGM Grand at kickoff was 24.5, but then if you go over to FanDuel, it was at 26.5. So this was a game that was right on the number in Vegas and was moving around a little bit depending on where you got it. There are some happy bettors and some not so happy bettors. The over also hit. I believe the overs now hit all three Lobo games. In fact, I'm sure of it. The over is hit in all three Lobo games, and maybe that's because Vegas did not expect the Lobo offense to be very good, and it frankly has been, even if with their red zone struggles.
Yeah. I'm looking at it from 6 days ago, circa when the tweet came out. They opened at 24, and then So I mean, it depends on what book you're looking at, but I saw him get up to 28, and then like you said, Brown first career start kind of came right back down. But yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again on Monday, and make sure to pick up a copy of tomorrow's Albuquerque Journal or online at abqjournal.com. You can subscribe. You can help local journalism, or subscribe however you want to do it. Print edition, digital, abqjournal.com/subscribe. I'll get you there quicker. Help us out, and see you guys on Monday. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Geoff, and thank you to our listeners.